Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dan Nguyen, and I'm here with a very special guest. He is the owner operator of a franchisee unit of Amerispec Inspection Services, a home inspection services in the greater Los Angeles area. Prior to owning this company, he worked as a quality manager for a major aerospace company. And his experience includes 25 years in the Navy, and his degree is in organizational leadership from Azusa Pacific University. He's very passionate about real estate business and family. So let me welcome Rudy Swigart.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate your time.
Sure. My pleasure. And thank you for your time hanging out with me today. And, for those of us who don't know a little bit about you, can you explain a little bit about your background and how you got into this business?
Yeah, sure. So right out of high school, I joined the military and spent, 25 years total time in the Navy. But halfway through that time period, I actually went back to school and got my degree. And then with the Navy, I was in the reserves at that time. And so when I came out of school with my degree, I was working for Aerospace Corporation, like you mentioned, as a quality manager. But that was just the day job. So my heart and passion were always in real estate. So I was in and out of real estate in one form or another. So when I got the entrepreneurial bug, I was looking at starting my own real estate company in California. It's relatively simple to go into something like home inspections, as an example. But I realized that I needed processes to be able to connect the dots on, marketing, client interface, product delivery, even, merchant services, getting paid, that sort of thing, payroll, all of those things. And so that's when I started looking at franchise.
So, what drew you into buying a franchise rather than, hey, let me just start my own from scratch?
Yeah, so that's great. So I started just a little bit on my own, formed the LLC, hunted down and got the certification, and then realized I was kind of at a standstill after getting certified. I wanted to get field trained. Other home inspection companies didn't really want to spend time field training somebody else to be their competition, and then I was lacking, like I said, the processes for, scheduling the appointment, conducting the inspection, writing the report, and then delivering the report to the client and collecting payment, right? I was and then any sort of like follow-up, CRM, email, marketing, all of those things under one umbrella, if you will. So franchising was a natural fit because they had all those systems in place already, and they had brand recognition, which was helpful.
Yeah. So let's talk about brand recognition. If we're starting from scratch, it's really hard to make a name for ourselves, especially in maybe a field like home inspection where there's a lot of competition. What was it about maybe the company you're with that said, hey, lends me instant credibility and it will make my life much easier if I joined a company like them?
Yeah, certainly. So Amerispec is part of the ServiceMaster family of brands. So most people know ServiceMaster Clean, ServiceMaster Restore, and the Amerispec franchise has actually been around for about 30 years. And my closest fellow business owner is in the southern area of Orange County here in California. And I was able to reach out to several different business owners and kind of talk to them about how they're running their shop and getting off the ground. So the marketing territory that I bought into was actually owned by an Amerispec business owner for up to about, I think, 2 or 3 years prior to me buying in. So when I started marketing, they were like, "Oh yeah, we've used Amerispec before. We know who you are," and that was great, especially at the beginning, getting established. Because when I walked into realtors' offices to do a little bit of marketing, I'd see their vendor shelf, and you're looking at probably 8 to 10 home inspection companies. So some were mom and pop, one-person shops. Others are multi-inspector firms that have 20 or 30 inspectors. So I realized that it's a competitive area, but having that name recognition really helped, especially with Google rankings and just making sure people could find me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about some of the support you get from the franchise of Amerispec. And, do they help you again? Obviously the name helps, but do they, outside of that, do they help you with any of the marketing and maybe searching higher on Google?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they have business development coordinators, what they call BDCs at the home office. The home office is in Memphis, Tennessee. So everybody goes back to Memphis for their certification and training, and then they pair you with a business development coordinator that will help you through the first 90 days
Mm.
of activities, right? And then even past 90 days, you're on weekly calls with the business development coordinators, looking at the month over month revenue, the weekly activities, and then they have recommendations for marketing strategies and where to go to get the print material and any sort of giveaways that we do. But better than that, if anyone from the home office sees this, I'm sure they're going to nod their head and say, yep, Rudy's right. Better than that is just leveraging from the experience of my fellow business owners. There's some great business owners across the nation that are doing it right, and they've got some great tips and tricks. So we've got a Facebook group of business owners. I'd say there's probably about 80 or 90 Amerispec business owners in there. They're active. We share pictures of things that we see in the field. We share giveaway or marketing ideas or trade show ideas. And home office also supports with like big banners and table setups and things like that if we're participating in larger events. So.
Yeah, yeah. So, and in terms of marketing, you talked about, walking into a realtor's office. Obviously you target realtors, but is there any particular niche, either realtor or property, that you really like to work? Like, this is my sweet spot. I'll do these all day long.
Yeah, certainly. So bread and butter of the home inspection industry is the relationships with realtors. Other niches that other business owners have formed have been with national accounts such as Sears will do a roof installation and they'll want an inspector, a third-party inspector, to inspect the condition of the roof after it's been installed. That's a niche area. Other niche areas are in insurance. If there's an insurance claim filed, the insurance company may want somebody to go out to assess the condition of the damage. And then on the other side of that, as they're underwriting policies, they may want a before sort of current state of the property before they release the policy. Lastly, property managers are always a good referral partner because they're have a lot of doors that they manage with churn in tenants. So as the condition of the property changes, at the end of a rental period or at the beginning of a rental period, they want us there to kind of be that. Again, it's third party unbiased documentation to represent their clients.
Yeah, and you mentioned something I didn't know. From my experience, I only know properties inspectors based on, hey, we're going to buy a property, and we're going to hire someone like Rudy to come and pick it. But like out of the whole pie of what you do, how much is it? Is it just maybe maybe a family buying a home, or how much of it is maybe the property manager hiring you to do third party or insurance or Sears?
So 75% is real estate transaction driven. So yeah, 75% is the home buyer buying a home. Other markets in California, it's the client is actually the seller and they want the inspection done before they list the property, and they'll include the inspection report as part of their disclosure. So it just depends on the market that you're in. But our niche in marketing and when I came into the business was always, hey, let's master the relationships with realtors because they have a large network of buyers and sellers. So if you pay attention to that first, your business will do well, and then you can tackle some of these other niche areas in insurance and property management, or add ancillary services that maybe other home inspectors aren't doing.
Yeah. So you mentioned the seller doing the home inspection prior to maybe listing it, what's the advantage of what's, I guess, the marketing advantage, right? Because everyone wants to sell their home for the highest dollar and the quickest. And usually, the buyer will pay for the inspection after,
Right.
the start of course. But like in that situation where the seller is prepaying and do the inspection, what advantages do they have when doing that and selling their home?
So my goal is to have no surprises during escrow, right? So the advantages for a seller is for them to be able to not be surprised with a buyer's inspection that says that they've got, that their roof is at the end of its service life, or that there's a plumbing leak under the house that nobody knew about, right? Or the electrical panel was installed 40 years ago and the brand is obsolete, and it's on the list of brands that have had potential hazards, right? So a buyer's inspector is going to come in and call out all of those things. Hey, your roof is near the end of its service life. You have a plumbing leak under your house. You have a older electrical panel with a history of arcing and sparking, or you have aluminum wires running through the house, which is again outdated. Fit, form, function, everything's working the way that it should be. But the buyer's inspector is going to document those things, and then the buyer is going to use the inspection report as leverage to either get the seller credit so they can reduce the price of the house, or ask the seller to fix things which the seller may not be in a position to do. So my goal is to inform, obviously, both sides of the transaction. My client gets the report based on what we do, and then they get to make decisions from there. But the benefit, to answer your question, of a seller having the inspection done before they list is having knowledge of what's there and being able to disclose what's there. So that way, when the buyer's inspection brings out the same instances, they can already have a mitigation plan or something in place to how they're going to respond to that.
Yeah. So when you have sellers doing the inspections prior to listing, going to escrow, what are you saying as like, hey, there's some things that need to be addressed in the inspection, but maybe they want to address them. Where would their dollar go the farthest? Like if they put $1 into all these issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the best return for each dollar you put in a situation like that?
So it's been my experience, and I went through this before I sold my home, that it's sometimes more beneficial to the seller to not respond to any material maintenance items, especially if they're less than $5,000, but to offer the credit. So if it's something health and safety related, the seller obviously has an obligation to do that, unless they're selling the home as is and they stipulate, as is early on. But I would say that's case by case, how much and where they want to, spend money to fix any of the items that the buyer is asking for, or what they may do. And what's been my experience that I see the most of is that they just offer money as a credit.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's kind of maybe the wildest property you inspected, or some of the weirdest things you've come across in inspecting a property?
Yeah. So I work with a flipping company, and they're always buying houses in all sorts of conditions. And you might ask, like, why would you do a home inspection for a flipper if they're just going to demo anyway and remodel? So I tell them the same thing. You don't want any surprises to impact your budget for your rehab, right? So you might be budgeting for kitchen and bathrooms, but you might not know that your roof is at the end of its life, or you might not know that there's potential plumbing issues or things like that. So I did a inspection in I want to say it was in Los Angeles for a investor buyer, and raised foundation. on the house. Everything inside was kind of torn apart, which was how I expected it to be. They didn't care too much about that, but the things that I do for them are like roof, electrical panel, water heater, structure, foundation,
Mhm.
right, to make sure that they're budgeting appropriately for these items. And so I wasn't able to get under the house.
Mm.
The access point was blocked off, and I want to say screwed shut. And so I told the client, hey, if there's a way that somebody can open that for me, because I'm non-invasive, right? I can't
Mm.
poke holes in
Uh,
walls or anything like that. Then I'll be happy to get under there, right? And take pictures and show you what's going on down there. So ended up leaving the inspection. The client called me back later that day and said, hey, can you come back tomorrow? The seller says it's okay for us to cut a hole in the floor. so, so, so they went in with like a skill saw and they cut a hole in the kitchen floor, which was, big enough for me to be able to get into and get under the house and finish my inspection. So that's, it's rare,
Mhm.
but those sorts of things do happen. And so as a result of that, sometimes we're finding things under the house that allow the buyer to negotiate, a price reduction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as a real estate professional, I know the housing market has slowed down a little bit. If you can forecast a little bit of, what it might be like maybe the next year or 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
Love to hear your thoughts on what the housing market would be like.
So I'm very optimistic, believe it or not. California realtors went back on the essential list, I want to say about 3 weeks ago. Um, and so they are, I see emails because I'm on the Orange County Association of Realtors mailing list. I'm part of the Pacific West Association of Realtors. And I see how they are having Zoom meetings just like this, and they're navigating, the changes in the current environment. Some realtors that I work with track the numbers very closely, and they say that we're about half, about 50% of the volume that we had, in January, February timeframe, even going into March. So things have slowed down a little bit, but my outlook on the market is actually pretty positive, because I feel like rates are still doing good things, and they're probably changing, weekly. And as if the rates are staying low, and the buyer confidence continues to grow, the inventory was really low for a little bit, and now the inventory is starting to come back up as far as the number of houses being on the market at any given time. So that is a prime environment, if you will, for real estate transactions, especially once we open our doors again. But home inspections are still going on. A lot of my clients come to me through Yelp or through their realtor, right? Recommendation, and we're just doing things a little differently. We're exercising social distancing. We're wearing masks and gloves, booties on our feet. If the client doesn't have to be at the inspection, we ask them not to be. But if they want to be there, we certainly tell them that it's okay for them to be there. But we're going to social distance. We're going to wear masks, and we're going to wear gloves, and we have hand sanitizer, and we're happy to walk them through the process. So I think we're smart and resilient enough to where we'll be compliant, and the gears of real estate will keep moving forward.
Yeah. So I do want to ask you, as you start servicing more homeowners, during this time, what are maybe the top 3 things a homeowner needs to know about the home inspection process to make their sales transaction smoother and faster?
Yeah, certainly. So we are generalists and not specialists, and we're non-invasive. So we're not removing recessed lights to look behind walls or things of that nature. So as I manage expectations with my clients, I let them know that we're only able to observe and document the things that we're able to see and have access to. So sellers need to make sure that we have access to the attic. As an example, I don't know any homeowners that ever have need to go into their attic unless they're doing, Christmas storage up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes it's in a closet where they have a bunch of things underneath it or in the way. So access is critical for us to know. Making sure the utilities are on, and then making sure that they're okay with the time frame for us to be there.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of going back to your journey as a business owner and an entrepreneur, tell me a little bit about how much, you talk about the systems of Amerispec and all the things that they give you. So it sounds like they kind of really fast tracked you into, having now 5 inspectors. If you can estimate, like, it would have taken you months or years to build out all the things you have now, what would you say, how much time that would be? How much time do you save by joining Amerispec?
Yeah. So my mindset as an entrepreneur was to build a business, right? So I wasn't buying into a job, right? I was buying a business that I wanted to build relatively quickly. So the franchise being, almost business in a box, right? Plug and play. With that mindset, I ran at duplicating myself as quickly as possible. I know other business owners that are doing tremendous volume, and they are one person shops, So I felt like they hit a ceiling, right? And they're not going to do any more because they're just physically not able to. I mean, they're doing 3 inspections a day, Monday through Sunday, right? They're killing it, doing really well, but work-life balance, those sorts of things come into play. They're supermen. That's what I call them. I don't know how you do it. So my goal was to duplicate myself many times over, so that way we could handle the volume, because not just is the practical application of conducting the home inspection part of the business. That's one part of the business. The other part of the business is making sure that the phone rings, and that we're getting the bookings in place to be able to execute that. So I wouldn't mind, starting slowly if that's what somebody prefers to get to know the business. But my goal, year 1, was based on revenue, and I knew how many inspections I needed to complete per week in order to reach that goal. So that's what I ran after: duplicating myself, reaching the volume goals, and getting there. And the franchise model allowed for me to do that relatively quickly.
Yeah, and I like how you talk about duplication, because not just in your business, but people who buy into a franchise, sometimes they come in from corporate America or regular 9-to-5 job, but I think you said it perfect. Like, they're just really trading one job for another, but now
Right.
you're probably making less and you're working more.
Sure. Well, you're definitely working more. no doubt.
Right. And so I'm glad you mentioned that, because I get people asking me, because I do a lot with franchisors and franchisees and potential franchisees who want to buy into things like, especially food and beverage. They're open 14-hour days, and yeah, if you own one of those, if you don't set it up right, you're going to work a very long time. So it's kind of refreshing to you knew what you kind of get into, how you wanted to build the business coming into the system. So let's talk about your time in the military for a little bit, and how much did your training and your experience translate into you owning this business?
So I did 25 years total time between active duty and the reserves, but I learned a lot at a young age, because I went in right out of high school. And I think what that taught me to do at the time was it took me from my inexperienced, irresponsible teenage years and placed me into an environment where I had to be a certain place at a certain time with the right equipment, because people were expecting me to be there, to be part of that unit or that team. And if I wasn't there trained up with all of my gear at the right time, potentially people could get hurt right? So I was part of a military unit that called for that type of responsibility, I guess. And so that instilled in me this work ethic, I guess, to, hey, if I'm not there 15 minutes early, I feel like I'm late. If I'm not crossing my I's and dotting my T's, I feel like I'm not bringing all of myself to the table. So not that people don't gain that work ethic outside of the military, because I've seen some great business leaders that are working many more hours than I am, having got out of high school and gone to college. But for me, I didn't really have much of an idea what I wanted to do after high school. I knew that I didn't want to go to college at the time. I was pretty irresponsible, and wanting to run around in my irresponsibility. But I knew enough, I guess, in my head to say, if I stay at home, it's probably going to be kind of a dead end for me. I'm going to have mom and dad on my back, and I still wasn't driving then, so I wanted to go and kind of forge my own way, and so that's what I think that allowed me to do.
Yeah. And you've talked about duplication, and now you have 5 inspectors. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how fast did you hire your first inspector? And then kind of what do you look for into bringing someone onto your team?
Yeah, certainly. So I opened my doors in August of 2018, and I hired my first inspector in November. So September, October, November, about 3 months in. And he came to me from another Amerispec office, which was a huge blessing. So he had already been through the training back at the home office. I field trained him very little. What I mostly trained him on was the new software that we were using. So he was able to kind of hit the ground running, so to speak, and that was super helpful for me. So then he and I both did inspections. So I doubled my volume essentially overnight, or I doubled my capacity so instead of doing maybe 10 inspections per week, I could do 20 inspections per week if I still wanted to do 10 myself, right? So I had that leverage. So once I realized that, I started to give him more and more of my work because he was willing to take it. And that allowed me to do the other side of the business, which was market in that marketing territory that I was talking to you about. So I started penetrating realtors' offices more and more. I started hosting lunch and learns, bringing lunch for the team, right? Sponsoring sales meetings. I got involved in BNI. I got involved with the Veterans Association of Real Estate Professionals. So any sort of opportunity where I could talk about home inspections or add value to a real estate team, I was looking for ways to plug into that. And so that allowed me to bring on another inspector, number 2, and she came to me just kind of hey, I would like to do some part-time work. I'm a commercial inspector. I want to learn this residential side. So I worked with her, sent her back to home office to get her certification. And then the others kind of came in, I guess, on kind of a part-time as needed basis as the volume continued to grow. We finished last year about $200,000 in volume. And our goals for this year were to double that. I brought in a chief marketing officer and hired an office manager so we could really take a swing at getting some of these other niche areas in play. COVID has definitely slowed us down. So, but we're adjusting. Of the 5 inspectors, most of them have other part-time work that is still able to help them pay the bills. So, because they're on commission, they're not. Yeah, they're not. They're all W-2'd, but they're on commission. So if there's no inspections, they're not earning a paycheck. So, it's hitting us relatively evenly across the board, but we just keep talking about, hey, we're all doing the right things. The marketing is still going very well and in place. So when things swing the other way, we're going to be drinking from a fire hose. So,
Okay. Yeah.
that's the plan.
All right. Awesome. So we're almost at the end of our time, but I want to ask you some rapid fire questions
Okay.
about, about yourself, and just answer the first thing that pops in your mind. Okay. All
Okay.
right. So who do you look up to?
Oh man, Jesus Christ, first and foremost. Yeah.
Okay. What's the best business advice you've ever received?
Relationships. The value of relationships has allowed this business to go very far.
Yeah. What's the best business book you've ever read?
Two of them. One's called The One Thing by a guy named Jeff Woods, and another one is called The Slight Edge. I can't think of the author, but it just speaks to like little daily activities that duplicated over time turn into big things.
Right. If you could do one thing over again, what would it be?
Oh man, go back to being 15 years old. Yeah, I would have gone into business ownership sooner.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the last question is, second to last. You lose everything, but the only thing you have left is your computer, your phone, and your internet connection. How do you rebuild your business in 90 days?
By doing what we're doing now, getting the word out on who we are, what we do, talking about the services, reaching out, and fostering those relationships that you have or creating new ones.
All right. And lastly, what's the biggest challenge in your business today?
COVID-19 has slowed us down, but I would say on a regular business day, the biggest challenge is managing expectations.
All right. Thank you, Rudy, for your time. If we want to reach out to you, where can we find you?
www.vetsinspect.com. That's VETS Inspect, INSPECT, or the business number is area code 714-673-7216.
All right, Rudy, thanks again for your time. Rudy Swigart from Amerispec. Thanks again for your time, and I've enjoyed the conversation.
Appreciate it, Dan. Have a good day. Thank you.
You too.